And I'm back with part B of my Lilfe Pico Nemo D custom. Remember to watch part A and the other parts of the series. This is a grabby picture of a face. Now I put everything back in its original packaging for fun, and I'm going to start on her wings. Just looking at the body and all the stains, and adding a little tube to the neck peg so I can get it into the head and it stays there. And that was the dress that stained there. So I got this picture online of the wing pattern, and I adjusted it like how I wanted it because it's somebody else's design. And I put a clear file or any type of clear plastic over it and tape it down and get all my glitters and micas and what not ready. I'm going to make a wire frame of all the veins and stuff, and I'm going to use some small gems and glitters and beads to decorate it. Here I'm testing out which of the small things can work, and other than circles and ovals, other geometric shapes doesn't really look that nice. So I start with my wire, fold it in half and bending it to the shape of the wings how I want it, and then cutting it off. For some reason I thought I'm going to twist the wire around another piece of wire, so I left a bit extra over here, but I didn't do that in the end, so I had to cut that off. So I'm using some craft glue to add to my lines and then gluing my wires in place. And my wire is kind of a craft wire that's covered in an iridescent pinkish fabric. And so, along with cutting the wire with my pliers, well, not pliers, whatever it's called, I also cut it with scissors because of the fabric. And so I shape pretty much all of the wings in the same way and add glue to my plastic sheet, and then add my wire on top. Just remember to add enough glue so that every part of your wire sticks properly. And hello, face. It's better to move in small sections instead of trying to do everything in one go. Especially with big parts that don't like to work along with you. So in between I thought that I could put another plastic sheet on top until it dries, but that prevents it from drying. So it's better to just get something heavy to keep everything in place. So I skipped a bit of steps, but it's nothing too complicated. You see, I'm using my scissors over there to weigh it down. And I'm also going to be using quite a bit of extra glue to make sure the edges between the wire and my plastic is properly sealed. That's to prevent spillage later, but it can't prevent all the spillage, unfortunately. You'll see what I mean with that later. And while I was doing this, I thought it kind of looked like a stained glass effect. Depending on what type of glue you're using to stick your wires, adding too much glue may make it visible. My glue is transparent, or dries transparently, so it's not that much of a problem for me. You can, in some cases, wait a bit until your glue gets a bit tacky before sticking the wire to it. But for mine, there is a very fine line between functional tacky and non-functional. And so for this step, it's just me making sure all the edges are sealed, making sure that nothing's going to leak out, and so on. And now everything's dry. And I'm mixing up my resin, part A and part B. Just a few milliliters. And then I'm mixing up my mica powder. And the first one is a pearly white. And then I add it to the sections I want to be that color. And just know that because the wire bends and it's stuck to the plastic bends a bit as well, and then so you get areas that are a bit more raised or a bit less raised than others, and then when you're not paying attention it spills a bit. Okay. Now onto my next batch of resin. I mix them up. And I didn't film that, but that was an iridescent color. It's with a yellowish shimmer. And then the next one, I'm adding some pink. If you're wondering about the glue bottle on top, it's basically because the wire in that area is super raised compared to other places. But that ended up making a mess though, because the resin climbed up onto the bottle and over the edge. Okay. Next is purple, but unfortunately my purple is very muted inside my resin. So I just decided to try more, and when that didn't work, I added some glitter. Because I was pretty much going for a darkish purple. And you can see on the left side between my iridescent and pearly sections, there's some spillage in the center of that piece. From the pearly to the iridescent. Not like you can actually properly see with this type of footage. Anyway, going with my last color, which is another iridescent color, but this time a bluish, pinkish iridescent. Trying to make sure I got everything out. And now I'm going to add my little decorations. First is these tiny resin gems that I got from my cousin. And then some tiny nail art gems I bought a while ago. But because they're so tiny, they're really a hassle to put in. So here I'm using a toothpick, which has a bit of paste stick, something similar to blue tack on the bottom, which I stick to my nail art gem and then bring close, and then I use the sharp part of a skewer to drop it into the resin, but it doesn't always work out too well because I've dropped them on the wrong side or the wrong position, and well, you can maneuver, but it's not that easy. Yeah, I'm going with the pink gems. And now I let it dry for over 24 hours. And after it dried, I remove my plastic from the table and then gently peel it off. You can see my wire was obviously a bit old, so it stained a bit, but it's thankfully in the back. So now I'm using my craft knife to cut off any of the excess glue and maybe any resin that's spilled. And then I'm going to start using scissors because that's actually quite a bit easier. So my resin takes a bit longer than 24 hours to cure, so I can still paint my wings a bit at this stage if I wanted them in a certain pose or something. But since the center part of the wings is just a piece of wire, that part can still pose. And some footage got cut, but I cut some holes in the inside of the opening, and then I fed an elastic through and glued the elastics pieces together so that my wings can attach to my doll. Next is her outfit. I'm starting off with some socks, first folding over and pinning the top edge so I can sew them, and folding it in half, good side to good side, and pinning it in place and sewing across everywhere except the toe. Because our doll has a pretty boxy foot shape, I'm not going to sew the toe like this. I'm going to turn it on the other side and then fold it and sew the toe across. So it's like, so I can sew. I hope my footage explains, but it's difficult to explain with words. And then I trim off the excess and turn it inside out and put it on the doll. Next, I'm going to do some bloomers. I have 3 pieces of elastic and 2 pieces of fabric. So first I sew up the crotch seam on one side, preferably the front, and fold over and sew the top where the belt's going to be. And also the 2 bottom hems of the pant legs. And now I'm taking my elastic and pinning it in place in one edge on one side and pulling it across and spinning it on the other side. It's best to do this first with the legs and then the waist piece. Then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and do a zigzag stitch, being careful to go over the sides of my elastic pieces and not catch my elastic. So I encase my elastic in the zigzag. And after that I sew up the back seam, and then I sew up my 2 inner leg seams, and then we have some bloomers. My footage is of a version I accidentally sewed some of the elastic in my zigzag stitch, so it's not quite sitting right. Well, at least until the next section of the footage. There. Now it looks good. Now I'm going to do a dress. I'm going to first, I have 5 pieces, a front, 2 sides and 2 back pieces. So I pin my front side pieces together and sew, and pin my seam allowance to one side and sew that down. checking it on the doll, and then I do the same with the back pieces, sewing it onto the side pieces and then sewing down the seam allowance to one side. Now ignore the ribbon, because I originally wanted to close it with the ribbon, but that didn't work. And so I fold over my top edge and sew that down for a clean finish. I tried to sandwich the ribbon inside while sewing like that, but like I said, the ribbon didn't work out at all. Maybe on another outfit. Oops. And then I fold over and sew up the sides and still the ribbon. Instead of the ribbon, and you won't see it later, I'm going to be adding a hook and eye closure. Next, I'm using a few layers of tulle. I used way too much, so it was way too thick to make the skirt piece. I used 8 layers, which I probably should have used 4 or less. I sew a gathering stitch and pin the sides to the sides of the bodice, and then gather it until it's the right length and pin everything in place, and then sew. Let's see how my ribbon is failing me, and my dress is too long, so I cut it a bit shorter later and sewed up the back. Anyway, onto the sleeves. I have 2 layers of tulle for each sleeve and 2 pieces of elastic. And basically I'm going to hand sew a zigzag stitch. Well, first I stitch the elastic to one end, then I'm going to hand sew a zigzag type stitch around the elastic in order to pretty much get a piece like, oh yeah, no, I'm not good with my words again. Okay, so I'm making an elastic casing on the shoulder and on the wrist so that I can close up my tulle layer for just as a sleeve piece and nothing complicated. An elastic is meant to sit nicely and snugly on the shoulder and the rest of the doll. Anyway, so I go around into the tulle fabric, out of the tulle fabric, around the elastic, into the tulle fabric, out of the tulle fabric, and so on. And while I'm doing that, I'm pulling my elastic through the parts I already sewed, so that I can properly get everything aligned. And then at the end, I sew the other end of my elastic to the tulle as well. And then I repeat with the other one and with the rest. And then I fold my one pieces good side to good side and sew up the sides. And then turn them inside out. Just to note, usually I'm terrible at turning things inside out, but somehow this time it worked out. So there you can see there. Okay, there you can see I added the snap instead of the ribbons. But I made it tight, so. And my bloomers and my socks. And I'm tying a little ribbon around the neck. I originally intended the back of the ribbon to be on the back of the neck, but in my photos it's on the side and I think it looks cute. Now this is the extra tulle I cut off. I just tied it into a bow and sewed it on for a little bit of extra decoration. Not that you can see it most of the time because it's either behind the dress or behind the hair and wings. Next, shoes. I have 2 plastic soles, 2 paper insoles and 2 fabric pieces. First I glued the 2 fabric pieces together at the back, then glue it to the soles and then glue the fabric soles into the shoe. And then I'm going to glue on some decorations. I don't know what exactly I thought when I added the sequins in that pattern, but I ended up liking it. Finally, the hair. I covered her face and most of the hair in toilet paper, and then I used water glue to add it to the fringe and bangs which I want to style. Water glue washes out with water easily, so it's one of my to-go-tos for hairstyling. And after it's dry, I cut the hair, cut and try to style the hair. I'm absolutely terrible with styling hair. My BJDs all have almost destroyed wigs because I suck at styling hair. And I also suck at putting the hair into styles as well. It's like the only style I have is a ponytail or 2 ponytails or loose. I need to get better with that. But not that I style hair that often. I like having the option of restyling. And now let's put everything together. You have the neck piece, the ribbon on the neck, and then I put on my wings, and then I put on my dress. And my shawl sleeves. My little bloomers. I need to make more Picanino clothes, it's adorable. All in all, I'm quite happy with how she turned out. And I'm looking forward to my next pic. And thanks for watching my customization. I've decided to name her Elvinia. Well, my sister helped me with the name, I'm terrible at names. And I hope you enjoyed this process. I have a second video up, well 2 more videos up, where I make a custom and a step for my BJD Immortality. And please remember to watch all the other awesome customizations with everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.